Good morning.
Good morning, GracePointe. We are coming to you from our Sunday spot. This is where we do church every week. And with so many people joining us from around the city and around the country and around the world, we want to know, where do you GracePointe? So get in the chat, tell us where you're watching from and what you're doing.
We will be back in a little bit for some more announcements, but until then, you should always be on the GracePointe email list. So
yes, if you need to subscribe, go to gracepointe.net, scroll down to the bottom, and we'll get you signed up.
we are starting a new series today, and it's called Let Us Be, Embodying Our Values.
Let us be, let us be, let us be, let us be. Whisper words of wisdom, let us be.
Welcome to GracePointe.
We are a progressive Christian church.
Loving our community by gathering in our homes.
Even as we practice social distancing,
we're asking big questions about what it means to be human,
What it means to love our neighbors,
and what it means to follow Christ.
We're cultivating a safe virtual space to deconstruct or reconstruct,
to question and to grow.
We are welcoming, affirming, and fully inclusive.
Because who you are and who you love are celebrated here.
While we may be physically apart from one another,
we believe we're never truly alone.
You are never alone.
We're together in this.
We're together in this. So even though we can't give you a hug just yet,
We want you to know that you are beloved,
You are included.
and you are affirmed.
Welcome to GracePointe.
Welcome to GracePointe.
Welcome home.
Welcome home.
Welcome home.
Who am I that your love would seek and welcome me? I was lost, but you brought me. I know your love for me. Oh, your love for me. Who your love sets free. Oh, is free indeed. I'm a child of God, yes I am. Realize you have rescued me, your grace runs deep. While I was afraid to live, Jesus set me free. With his love for me, who your love sets free. Oh, it's free indeed. I'm a child of God, yes I am. In your loving arms, there's a place for me. I'm a child of God, yes I am. I am chosen, not forsaken. I am who you say I am. You are for me, not against me. I am who you say I am. I am chosen, not forsaken. I am who you say I am. You are for me, not against me. I am who you say I am. I am who you say I am. I am who you say I am. Who your love sets free. Oh, it's free indeed. I'm a child of God, yes I am. In your loving arms, there's a place for me. I'm a child of God, yes I am.
Good morning, GracePointe kids, and good morning, GracePointe youth. I hope each of you are doing really well. As our community continues to meet virtually, we host weekly opportunities for both GracePointe kids and GracePointe youth to connect with each other. GP kids, we hang out every Saturday at 10 a.m. on Zoom. GP youth, you hang out every Friday at 6:30 p.m. on Discord. GPY has the opportunity to connect with each other throughout the week on Discord. For an invite to our Discord platform, email me at lisa@gracepointe.net. GPY, your weekly discussion guide will be shared this afternoon on the GPY Discord. GPY grown-ups, the discussion guide is also shared with you by email, on Facebook, and also on Instagram. GP kids, this week we continue to utilize JL Creative's The Lord's Prayer curriculum. We focus on the collective language in the Lord's Prayer, and we discuss how when we focus on the collective, we can change our world. GP kids and GP kids grown-ups, you can find links to our Bitmoji gathering space as well as our principal guide in your email inbox, on Facebook, and on Instagram. Our GPK and our GPY Sunday emails serve as a weekly newsletter that keeps us up to date on what is being created for and shared with our GracePointe kids and our GracePointe youth families. I encourage us grown-ups to take a quick peek at our GPK and GPY Sunday emails. If you'd like to be included in the email list, simply email me at lisa@gracepointe.net. I hope each of you has a fabulous week and know that I am so grateful to be in community with you. All right, peace out, big air hugs, and so much love to each and every one of you.
Hey everybody, we're back with some announcements.
Each week we join here on YouTube together at about 10:30 before the service starts to say hi and check in with each other. And I would encourage everybody to do that. It's a great time to just say hi to everybody again for the week. And we do it on the backside too of service, and just to, encourage everybody to have a great week since we're still virtual. The second announcement is Reconstruct, Wednesdays at 6:30. It's my favorite. We talk about all kinds of crazy things and good things. We talk about the service from Sunday. We talk about life and politics and all the things that we would want to talk about. And so I really encourage everyone to join Wednesdays. It's a great time.
Next event, October 20th, is our next Books and Brews. We're going to be discussing part 1 of An Indigenous People's History of the United States. That's by Roxanne Dunbar Ortiz. So part 1 is the first 6 chapters, chapters 1 through 6. So you just have to read that far. Again, that's October 20th, 8 p.m. Central, which is a new time.
October 25th, we're having another community picnic, so that's exciting. It was a hit last time. Brian Gillen showed up with his long arms and his hugs, which was cuckoo. You should totally check it out on Facebook. He's the best. So we're going to do another one, of course. So that's October 25th, and it's at Sevier Park from 4 to 6.
Yes.
And then October 29th is Trivia Night, hosted by Nathaniel on Zoom. It's going to be spectacular. I'm super competitive, and so I will be there to crush everybody, which is not true because I'm terrible at trivia, but it's going to be fun, I'm sure. And it's not, did I say this? It's not just
just Bible trivia.
Yeah.
Yes.
I asked, I was like,
it's not just Bible trivia, it's all kinds of things.
Yeah, it'll be great. And so that, again, that's October 29th on Zoom, hosted by Nathaniel. Look out.
Those are just some of the ways that GracePointe is giving to us this week, this month. And so that makes us think about the ways that we give to GracePointe. And the biggest way that we do that is through our financial giving. Whether small or big, we appreciate the ways that you work to support GracePointe. There's 2 ways to give. You can go to gracepointe.net, or you can text GracePointe to 77977. And we appreciate all that you do and all that you give to us.
When this life has overwhelmed me, and I feel like giving up, I will cling to all you've promised. It will always be enough. When the world around me crumbles, and it's hard to understand, I will run to you, my shelter. I am safe within your hand. Oh, you are my help forever. I will not fear. God, you are with me. I know you're near. You'll never leave me. I will trust in you alone. When I'm broken in the silence, I can hear you whispering. You're not alone here in these trials. I will hold you faithfully. Oh, you are my help forever. I will not fear. God, you are with me. I know you're near. You'll never leave me. I fortress for the weak, the strength that carries me when I am on my knees. The cross reminds my heart to trust your faithfulness and love will always be enough. Oh, you are a fortress for the weak, the strength that carries me when I am on my knees. The cross reminds my heart to trust your faithfulness and love will always be enough. Oh, 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 you are a fortress for the weak, the strength that carries me when I am on my knees. Oh, oh, the cross reminds my heart to trust your faithfulness and love will always be enough. I will not fear, God, you are with me. I know you're near, you'll never leave me. I will trust in you alone. And when my heart and strength have failed me, my God, you won't. Your name is mighty. I will trust in you alone. I will trust in you alone. I will trust in you alone. I will not fear, God, you are with me. I know you're near, you'll never leave me. I will trust in you alone.
Good morning, GracePointe. We are so thrilled that you're here with us today, especially if you're joining us for the very first time. Wherever you are in the world, whenever you're watching this, we are so glad you're here. Today, I'm quite a bit excited because we're starting a new series, and that's a thing that excites me. And we're starting a new series to talk about our values as a community, about who we are and how those values shape the way we live together. And we're calling the series Let Us Be. And I want to begin today, before we jump into our values, I want to begin today just sort of laying the groundwork and the framework for where we're going to go. Before we do that, just a couple things I wanted to mention. This series will take us up to the Sunday before Thanksgiving. There's a couple of weeks, I'm looking forward to every week. There's a couple of weeks I'm really looking forward to. The first is on November 8th. Our very own Corey Dandridge will be joining me, and he and I will be doing a conversation about honesty and authenticity and being true to who you are. And then on the 22nd of November, as we wrap this series up, the final Sunday right before Thanksgiving, we're going to talk about our value of gratitude. And we're going to be joined that week by Diana Butler Bass. Many of you know who Diana is. She's a friend of GracePointe. She's a church historian. She's a scholar. She's an amazing preacher. And she has an incredible book on gratitude that I would highly recommend if you haven't picked it up and read it yet. But she'll be joining us on the 22nd to wrap our series up by talking about gratitude. So I'm really looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to where we're headed the next few weeks. But today, I think I should tell you, I'm actually pulling a bit of double duty today because I'm here right now. Well, this is actually Thursday morning when I'm recording this, but we're here together right now. And I'm also preaching this morning at a friend's ordination service. And I've been thinking a lot about that word as I've been preparing to speak at that today. And the word ordination, it's an interesting word. It sounds like it might even be a bit painful, right? Like being ordained might involve getting beat over the head or something. Like, what happened to Sherry? Oh, you didn't hear, she got ordained. Etymologically, like where the word comes from, it comes from the word ordinance, which means to set in order. We hear the word ordinance when we're talking about like city laws and those sort of things. There's an ordinance that says this, right? So it means to set in order. And in some ways, that's exactly what my own ordination experience was about. I'm trying to remember what year. It was like 2001, 2002 when I went through the process in the Baptist church I grew up in. And that's exactly what my ordination was about, being set in order. I was given a book in preparation about what Baptists believe, what their doctrines are, and I essentially memorized that book. And then on a Sunday evening, I ended up on stage on this church, on the platform with the pastor, and he asked me a bunch of questions based on the book, and I just regurgitated the answers I'd memorized. And then there was a process after that where all the ordained men, not only in the church, men, of course, right, only men, all the ordained men in the church, like deacons and the pastor, but not only them, anybody in our Baptist association in our county, pastors and deacons who were ordained, were invited to come to this, listen to my answers, and we were the biggest association in the state, so no pressure. Listen to my answers, go down into the church basement, and then deliberate about my answers. Were my responses set in order? Was I orthodox? Did I reflect a satisfactory understanding of our church doctrine? Were my beliefs the right ones? I think we all know that I would fail that today. I think most of us, probably all of us, would fail that today. And I'm also not doing that to my friend this morning. But thinking back to that moment, sitting on that stage, answering those questions, I wonder if somebody who, whether it's a visitor from another planet or somebody who'd never heard of religion or Christianity or the ordination process, if there was just somebody who was a sort of a blank slate when it comes to this, if they were just to observe that process, maybe even call it a ritual for the very first time, I wonder what they would take away from it. I wonder what they would think was happening. What would they, if you were to stop them, sort of exit polling them and say, what do you think the purpose of what just happened? What do you think the purpose of faith might be? If they had no other information, I imagine that they would think that being a Christian pastor was probably about having the right beliefs, being able to articulate those beliefs, and maybe judging and evaluating the way others hold and articulate their beliefs. Evaluating everybody's opinion around you and in your community for heresy. And to be fair, this is kind of how a lot of pastors end up approaching their work, right? They're the holder of truth. They're the holder of orthodoxy. And it is their job then to make sure that their community stays orthodox. And sometimes that shoe gets reversed. The pastor starts to sort of go color outside the lines a bit. And then the community gets frustrated, and there can be a lot of problems with that. But sort of this idea that the process, maybe the point, is to have the right beliefs, to be able to articulate them, and to be able to hold others accountable to them. I mean, this is a belief, I would call it a belief-centered approach to the Christian faith. And this belief-centered approach to faith is what has led to inquisitions and all of the atrocities that we've seen in church history, where one group of people believed, and this started way back. This started as soon as, when you can make the case that this started in the 300s when Constantine began meddling and trying to, the emperor, the Roman emperor, trying to resolve debates within the church, right? That suddenly you had people who disagreed, and there were a couple ways. You could argue about it, or you could kill the people who disagreed with you. And unfortunately, in Christian history, our ancestors did both. And this belief-centered approach not only is it the thing that has led us to so many atrocities, but it sort of assumes that the most important thing to God, the most important thing, the thing God cares about more than anything at all, is what's happening inside our brains, what is going on between our ears. And I want to say, as a disclaimer, I know that finding congruency and connection between your head and your heart is a vital part of the transformation process. I agree. I had to have that for myself, and that has been part of my process, especially for those of us who have left a toxic belief system, being able to process that and reframe it and reclaim and reimagine. But the primary task of the spiritual life, ultimately at the end of the day, the spiritual life isn't just about memorizing doctrines that will give us a better, more optimal afterlife experience, sort of a first-class afterlife experience. The primary task of the spiritual life is opening ourselves up to the journey of transformation. Like at the end of the day, the point isn't to have the right doctrines or beliefs. At the end of the day, the point is to be a certain kind of person in the world. And I think we can actually say, if we just end up having the right beliefs, which nobody does because nobody knows what those are, if it just ends up us having what we think are the right beliefs, that ultimately can set us up to be the kinds of people we don't want to be, which is this hypercritical, hyper-judgmental, hyper-focused on our own rightness and inness and acceptedness and everybody else who disagrees with us outness and rejectedness. The primary task of the spiritual life is opening ourselves up to the journey of transformation. Now, part of this is about our beliefs, because our beliefs do inform our actions, or they should. They inform how we engage the world. But I love sort of the image Jesus gives. And as somebody who's been called a false prophet more than once, I take a lot of comfort in Jesus' teaching in the Sermon on the Mount in Matthew chapter 7, where Jesus essentially says, you have to watch out for false prophets, and here's how you'll know. They may come dressed as sheep, but inside they're vicious as wolves. But Jesus says this, you will know them by their fruit. Do people get bunches of grapes from thorny weeds, or do they get figs from thistles? In the same way, every good tree produces good fruit, and every rotten tree produces rotten fruit. And at the end, he goes on to say, a good tree can't produce bad fruit, and a rotten tree can't produce good fruit. Jesus actually makes the argument that regardless of how orthodox someone may appear, regardless of how easy they can recite the doctrine, that ultimately what matters is what they're doing in the world. Because you can hold on. I love what Marcus Borg has said. You can have all the right beliefs and still be miserable. You can have all the right beliefs and still be unchanged. This makes sense, right? Good trees that are growing and alive and vital, they produce good fruit. And trees that aren't produce rotten fruit. Right? A person can seem spiritual and holy and still produce rotten fruit. A person can seem spiritual and holy and still gather thousands upon thousands of people in close quarters with no masks during a global pandemic to worship God in some sort of showy act that makes them look spiritual and everybody else look like they're not. A person can use all the right language and verbiage or none of the right language and verbiage, but when you move beyond the surface, it's like taking a bite out of wax fruit, right? You expect one thing and you get another a completely different experience. I think that neither God-taught nor orthodoxy are the ultimate indicators of who we are. You can wear all the Jesus t-shirts. You can wear all the, when I was growing up, WWJD bracelets. You can wear all of the Christian attire. You can listen to all the Christian music. You can do all the, you can only drink and eat things that have Christian on the label, right? You can do all of those things. And it doesn't mean you're ultimately going to bear good fruit. I love, one of my favorite texts is in Galatians 5, where Paul talks about the fruit of the Spirit. I think it's interesting that fruit here Paul doesn't use it in the plural. He uses it in the singular. The fruit of the Spirit, the thing the Spirit produces in our lives. The work of the Spirit is to churn up and provide nutrients for this thing, this kind of life. And here's what he says in Galatians 5. The fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. And I love this line. Against these things, there is no law, right? Like there's no law against this kind of goodness. Love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. It isn't a buffet where we're being invited to go pick the one we want to work on today. Paul says that as you're engaged in the spiritual journey, as the Spirit works in us, these things begin to be produced in us. So in this sense, the goal of the spiritual life, when we talk about let us become certain kinds of human beings in the world, the goal of the spiritual life, or the path of transformation, whatever you want to call it, is not believing. The goal is being. It's being, not believing. It is an invitation to move beyond the surface, to move beneath the surface, into the depths, into the rootedness, into the connection between our beliefs and our actions, and how we actually seek to implement the things we hold true, our beliefs and our values in the world. And ultimately, I think believing as just sort of an idea happens at the surface level. I think being in the world, a certain kind of person, it happens at a level of internalizing and then externalizing, about taking some things in and then living them out. It's why some Christians just love for anyone with any amount of societal clout to say the word Christian, or to seem to affirm some sort of Christian belief, or to throw out a Bible verse, or to say something that sounds quasi-Bible-ish. So maybe it's the football coach who wins the national championship and he gives all credit to his Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Or it's some celebrity at an award show thanking God for the award. Or it's a politician who uses tear gas on peaceful protesters who are asking for justice in the application of laws and policing. And instead he uses tear gas on them so he can make a journey to a church he doesn't go to hold the Bible up in a very strange way. And some folks will just eat that up. Because it seems like it smacks of religiosity. It smacks of, well, look, that's a Bible. That's a Christian thing to do. Everything Christian isn't Jesus-y. Everything that carries a label of Christian. Sometimes the Crusades carried a label of Christian, right? It was Christian soldiers going out and taking the land back for God. Having the Christian label doesn't make it Jesus-y. It doesn't mean it's congruent with the way of Jesus in the world. It actually may mean sometimes that it's not. And us having an openness and awareness that, look, we don't want to just stay at the surface where we just look for Christian-y things. We want to move beneath the surface. Because ultimately, sometimes I think what ends up happening is we get so stuck on the label and the surface level. And then when we actually try to engage, what we find out is that the fruit we thought was good fruit is actually waxy or rotten, and it leaves a bad taste in our mouths. And I've been seeing this happen as people are engaging. We're in this current conflicted election season in our country, and Christians are popping up all over the place. And what I've noticed is that some folks were looking for engagement. Some folks who don't carry the Christian label were looking for engagement, and what they got was judgment, and what they got was hatefulness, and what they got was a person advocating values that when they sort of understand the life of Jesus and then you go to this, like it just can't add up. The truth is, embodying our beliefs in a way that moves us beneath the surface often isn't showy or flashy. It often happens under the radar with very little fanfare. It happens in the everyday decisions to love and serve, to show compassion and to extend empathy, to be generous and to pursue justice. And all of that stuff is not, often it's not as sexy as a big massive rally with hundreds of thousands of people or 50,000 people or whatever, but what it ultimately is the way the world gets transformed. In the everyday, non-showy, non-flashy, simple and small, kind and generous ways we live in the world. To just put it simply, being is greater than believing. Being is about developing habits. It's about developing a rhythm. It's about maybe developing almost a kind of reflex. I don't know, when you think about, like, we have these reflexes that sometimes you drop something and you catch it on the way down and you didn't even, like, it's just a reflex. What if we were to become the kinds of people for whom love was a reflex? Not something we had to really concentrate on, but something that just because we've done the work, because we've been engaged in what's going on in the root system beneath the surface, we now can begin to embody this sort of thing. Are we going to get it perfect every time? Of course not. Are we ever going to make mistakes? Probably lots of the time. But what if we were to do that work so that love and justice and kindness and the good things we want to see embodied, compassion in the world, became more reflexive for us? What if we could actually embody the goodness of the values we hold, not just believe it? We could actually begin to live it out in really practical ways. So before we wrap up today, I want to just give you a sneak peek at where we're going over the next several weeks, and then we'll wrap up. First, next week, we're going to talk about what it means to embody love. What does it mean to be love? Specifically in the world we live in right now, where it seems like love at some sort of, any kind of concrete level, is we're so divided, we're so angry, we're so fractured. What does it look like to hold love as a value, to believe that love can change the world, and then to embody that belief in the way we seek to go about loving ourselves, loving our neighbors, and loving God? What does that ultimately look like? Then we're going to talk about embodying and being courageous. What does courage look like in the world we live in today? We're going to talk about curiosity. What does it mean to be a curious person? Because for so many of us, our religious upbringing was like anti-curiosity. It was, don't ask the questions, don't prod, don't go any further because you might find out something that wrecks your faith, right? Don't take that class in college because it'll wreck your faith. And sort of where I've landed is that if something can wreck your faith, go for it, because it means your faith ultimately probably isn't serving you very well. Then we're going to talk about on the 8th of November being honest and authentic. I'm going to have Corey with me for that. November 15th, we're going to talk about humility, being a humble, embodying humility. And that's often, we talked about this a little bit earlier this year, but we're going to come back to it as one of our values, because the idea that humility means having a low sense of self and a low sense of value of who we are, that's just destructive. And we want to really, really think about that. And then finally, we'll end with being grateful, embodying gratitude with Diana Butler-Bass. And I'm so excited about all of these weeks and what it will mean for our community to really not only reflect on our values, but to think together about how we're going to embody them as we move forward. And so each week we'll explore what this value means, what it looks like to begin to internalize it, and then what it looks like to externalize it in the world around us. Because being is greater than believing. Embodying is greater than just holding some abstract beliefs. Putting hands and feet into the world is better than intellectual assent to a few doctrinal categories that don't really impact our lives in any significant way. Ultimately, believing does not change the world, at least not for the better. But being, that can change everything.
light of God's highway. Fear not, keep on, watch and pray. Walk in the light of God's highway.
Well, once again, GracePointe, thank you so much for being here with us today. We are so thrilled that you were here to be a part of this gathering as we begin our new series, Let Us Be. Today we talked about being is greater than believing. And next week we're going to begin to talk about our values and how we can internalize them so that we can externalize them in the world, so that we can embody them in the world. And next week we're going to talk about love. Specifically, I want to talk about love in our current context, in our fractured, divided, often filled with hatefulness and judgment. And what does it look like to embody love in the world we find ourselves in? So I hope you'll be with us next week. I hope to see you this week at Reconstruct, 6:30 Wednesday evening, 6:30 Central Wednesday evening. You can find that at gracepointe.net/calendar. And yeah, it's been great to see you today, folks. Hope you have a great week ahead, and we'll see you next week. We love you, GracePointe. Grace and peace be with you.
Thank you.